Okay, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Show Me the Data. Today we are joined by D, and we're going to be talking about everything intent and intent signals, which I'm really excited for because the original host of the show, Toucan, were all about intent data.
Yeah,
And
my old buddy.
that was kind of like the origin of the show. So it's good to be going back to its roots in all the ways. So I think to kind of kick things off, first of all, D, thank you for joining. And could you just kind of like, just give us like a bit of a brief overview of like what it is that you did and just a quick summary for those listening.
Yeah. So my background with intent is long and storied. The largest deal I ever sold was for a large intent deal to McAfee. It was a $500,000 deal for intent, $500,000 ARR deal. So I was at Aberdeen for a long time. We inherited the Hart Hanks customer intelligence database. We later acquired a company called Big Willow, which captured intent through the bit stream before anyone else was. A lot of great, smart people with Madison Avenue backgrounds that brought that to B2B and worked to combine those two into products. Then was at Metadata. Metadata activates intent for the ad channel. They're doing some really cool things with intent right now as well. And since then have been, I'll say, on the periphery or in it one way or another. At Hockey Stack, when I was head of revenue there, that delivered on intent. That we used a lot of intent. When I was at Modigi, we were in mobile numbers. So we were helping to execute intent using mobile numbers. And then I'm back at Metadata. I'll just share that as of today. You get this in a few days. They're doing some really innovative things with intent, generating their own intent, and have a lot of friends in the space too. I could shout out later. But yeah, very familiar with it, and it's an exciting space. It really is. We're seeing so much investment in AI that turns this intent to business.
It seems to have been like I followed the kind of intent conversation on LinkedIn over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And it's always one of those very very kind of highly debated topics is the way to put it. Where there's people sitting on very, I think, extreme ends of the fence about whether they do or don't like it. What's like your thoughts on where we're currently at with intent data in the space? I know there's a lot of providers right now that are pushing the whole kind of first party intent data thing, and that being the play, our B2B and these guys. So like where are we currently at with intent data?
Yeah, so we're getting there. So you have to think about where a lot of this intent comes from. A lot of it comes from Madison Avenue, where they would look at the bid stream and purchase habits, and they would be, at a huge scale, run pretty much display ads originally. That's what it was. Yeah. Display ads and some Google. And that's really where it came from. Well, for B2B, there's challenges there, right? Like think about intent. If you have a solution, is there a certain category? Does someone know they need you, right? Not necessarily. And, software as a service, it's usually a solution that's being delivered. For a commodity or, like the new Nikes or whatever, it's very different. If someone's building a new building and they need, they need phones, it's very different. And that's really where it started, aggregating that third party intent. I think there's been a lot of false starts there because display ads just don't convert, they just don't. The social channels are taking up more of our time. And, a vendor just shared their inbound traffic from VENDR from different AI channels, and like the ChatGPT chart is through the roof, right?
Green. No.
So that's going to continue. So, those display ads, what are they good at? Well, I need to buy new laundry detergent, and I saw an ad about this laundry detergent. That's how that works. So for B2B, that's not necessarily good. It's good for brand, like if you see a bunch of 6 Sense ads, you're like, oh, cool. It's a good brand.
Yep.
I mean, I know we did a webinar and we promoted it via the ad network, and we got like 2 leads. And then I'll also share, we did research here at Metadata, and between fraud and bots, like in middlemen, only like 20% of display was actually getting to the right person. So So that's where that started. There were some other cool things. TechTarget had Priority Engine, which is second party data. And now, we're seeing a lot being done on first party data. We're seeing a lot being done. These tools are kind of federating what enterprises were doing. So they're bringing, in a UI, whether that's, Clay or Warmly or User Gems or Unifi, they're putting it in a UI and allowing you to build workflows differently. And I think that's where the challenge is, that's where the battle is going to be, is in the workflow, right? Which workflow wins out. Warmly is really easy to use. Unifi is kind of in the middle. Clay is very difficult, typically. And that's using AI to action that first party signal. And there's I'll send it to you. There's a great common room. Kevin White's brilliant. He built a chart on signals. The challenge there is these signals, they are, how does AI actually, make them actionable? Well, we see it, right? I commented on a post, and then half an hour later, I got an AI message, something I had nothing to do with. The digital channels are very crowded. So, there has to be a lot of context. And, I ran a campaign with Instantly, and like nothing came of it. These are really good emails. So you have to be really targeted. I think the future, it's going to be second party data. So partner data, you reach out to publications, get, their opt-ins. We find this bespoke data that's really an incredible trigger for our business, that, didn't interact with us first party, right? Isn't just collected from the ether, and it makes for a great signal. And I think that's where enterprises get it, because if you go onto, the AWS, Snowflake, or GCP marketplace, you can buy a ton of data, right? There's second party data that you can buy from the demand gen vendors that nobody buys. I'm like, just don't buy the leads, just buy the opt-ins. Really negotiate hard on the wholesale data, because those are opted in. I think that's the next frontier. Is like, okay, we have this library of second party signals. So I'm trying to think, like,
and just just to clarify, like, just when you say second party, I know there'll be people listening that might not quite fully grasp what you mean when you say second party data. So like, what like, give us like an example of what that would look like.
Yeah, somebody else collects it, and you can use it. So that would be like content syndication, right? You opt in to our partners, you can use it, or you use a freemium solution, and they're like, okay, we can share your data. That's the kind of second party data, and it's de-anonymized. Third parties from the ether, like, no one's opted in, it's just collected. It's very strict rules on it. Usually there's no context assigned, and then first party is they come to your website. But imagine like, hey, we want to do AI cold calling. Like, it's illegal in the States. I think it's illegal everywhere.
Europe,
very illegal.
It's definitely illegal in Europe.
yeah, and it should be. It's awful. Like, it's it should be illegal. Because think of the duplicity that can be done there. But imagine if someone does opt in, right? And I forget the stats. Like, after the third call, it goes way down. And you're able to ferry that to an SDR, and they make 3 calls, and then the AI follows up with the next 4 calls over the next 2 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, that's kind of powerful. Or you add them to your newsletter. Tactically, you look at the data and you say, okay, they're a good fit. Maybe they've interacted somewhere else, and you add them to your newsletter, or you upload them to metadata. And you can get any type of ad, social ads, conversational ads in front of them. That's really, really powerful.
Yeah, I think,
or you can put them in an agent. Yeah.
I mean, I think like using it as data for like a LinkedIn ad campaign, or obviously for a platform like Metadata, it makes a ton of sense. And a lot of people are unaware. Enterprises have been doing this for forever. So Joe, they've been doing this forever. They've had to use a lot of data prep, data warehouse, and buy it in volume, because they wouldn't sell. You can just buy credits, right? And it's still expensive. But they've been doing this for a long time. Like Snowflake, they've been doing this. They have their own, instance, and they do data reconciliation, so they could target 1-to-1 on LinkedIn, and they've built that out. And
a lot of these practices, they're two things. It's replicating what great sales do, right? So all these signals, I've been chasing down these signals since forever, like I see these signals, I'm like, that's it. Like there's no silver bullet. The silver bullet you have to find for your company. And then when you look at the platforms like Unifi, like BitScale, like Clay, they have to be, they're replicating that data warehouse, that they're really like Clay was built as a no code tool. Eventually I was told. I'm friends with, he's amazing, by the way, Osman over there. He's head of ops. He's amazing. And he told me that. I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Because when you look at it, it's built like that, right?
Yes.
But what they've done is just the data partnerships and the community around it are just phenomenal. But that's what enterprises were doing when I sold that intent deal. That's what they were doing. They were cleaning that data and they were tying it to things so they could send out very targeted emails and deal their ads. Yeah. Send it to sales when appropriate. And that was, 11 years ago, 12 years ago. So yeah, before us, they did it with, I forget they're Pharaoh's IQ now, but they did it with another company. So yeah. This is not new. It's just now really smart people like the Kiln can do it and create an agency, or Kellen K-Spear can do it on his own, and build a business out of it. So it's really federated that, which is cool. It's also scary because sometimes you get these messages and you're like, this is so great. Like, leave me alone.
Yeah, 100%. Just to like kind of switch gears a little bit, like I guess, so talking about and that's been like a great overview of kind of, I think, where the space is at. Talking about the campaign and what you did specifically, it'd be great to hear about this kind of, signal methodology that you built out previously, and just what went into that, because I think there'll be a lot of learnings there for the audience just to kind of implement.
So you don't need really expensive tools to do this, which is good. And I'm looking at my little list. So the first thing I did was I looked at the easy signals. So this was at Stack Moxy, great company. They're testing for your mob stack, and they've been around for a while. So I looked at LinkedIn followers, lost opportunities, competitor followers, event followers. Big industry events are always a great signal. PLG usage, influencer followers, and then of course website visitors. I also looked at open source communities because we support some open source technologies. That's always overlooked. Like there's no open source companies haven't figured that out. And what did I do? So first off, I created a custom target account list, right? And we didn't have. I was helping. I was an advisor. We didn't have resources for a huge, tool there. And what I did is I appended using data, certain firmographics like company size, industry, who they sell to, that type of stuff. And then I uploaded it to ChatGPT. Now, the secret about most LLM AI is that it's not good with structured data. It's just not good at structured data, and it tends to peter out. So that does take effort. You got to work on it. You got to add resources. I said, hey, go to RSA, find list of top, tech companies, growing tech companies. And it takes time. It takes time because it does not do well with structured data. Like, you can only do so much with most structured data.
Yeah.
Like they have, there's other things there, like data visualization is very good at. And I created, the customer, customer list from there. And I did some other things. I looked at, my connections, etc. And I started to use La Growth Machine, which does automated social media outreach and follows up with emails. And, it wasn't bad. I said a couple meetings, but really, and I apologize to anyone, really the good learning there was, hey, I can connect with, I can be a member of the community very quickly. Like I had a head start, right? Like, I know a lot of MOPS. I love the MOPS community. I'm friends with some great people in MOPS. Yeah. But it allowed me to like expand that ecosystem of MOPS professionals so that I can, they could see content on that, right? I can connect with them there. I can read their post, and it expanded that, I had a good start, but I think like twofold. And that was really the power there. And then I did set some meetings, I think it's worth noting that like some meetings were set, but that was a big thing. And then, just calling, right? Like the call still works. The 30 Minutes to Present Club, they wrote something like calling increases likelihood of a meeting being booked. I forget some crazy stats, like over 50%.
Yeah.
So, if you leave, voicemail is hard. I'm terrible at voicemails, but, you leave a voicemail, you call a few times, you say, hey, keep it quick. That definitely has an impact right there. Yeah. And there's other things, Slack groups you have to be very careful with because, they're closed communities and they'll get mad at you, understandably. There's things like that. But yeah, it's exciting. There's a ton of tools that you can run with, as long as you don't like metadata. We're activating a lot of the machine to machine. So like the ads, like someone comes to the website, you can create a segment there. You can automate all that. So like someone comes to the website, they'll see ads. There's great companies. I mentioned BitScale, Warmly, User Gems, Clay, Attention is doing some cool things. ZoomInfo, their Copilot's really strong. Yeah. Or my friend Eric works at Origami Agents, and they're really big on the bespoke data, finding that second party data, that unique, when are contracts due, right? If you sell like, a commodity, right? You sell, what is it? Backup and recovery, right? Like someone's already in a contract. Like you have an account list of 100, enterprise account list of 100. You can't sell to half of them because they have a contract. You got to like warm them up. So yeah. It is. And it's fun too. I think that's the only danger though. Some of the novelty, like it's so fun to do that you do have to wonder, like, is the novelty greater than the benefit? Which I think that happens a lot with this AI stuff. Not all of it, but more than you would think.
100%. Do you think like because I feel like with intent, and I've even felt this myself, right? That there's kind of, you feel like you need to use lots of tools in order to build an intent program, or to, there's so many vendors that are out there, promising this data and that you need to use this tool to run this type of play. And I see it all the time on LinkedIn at the minute with all these like crazy workflows.
Oh, it's insane. Yeah.
It's like, N8 workflows and this workflow. What's like your take on, just kind of, intent with, I guess, little to no tech versus intent with like, can you run an intent program without like heavy tech?
Oh yeah. I mentioned some of the signals I shared. You can create your own signals, right? So like who opened emails, right? Who commented on my post, who commented on a follower's post. I think for these tools though, you really have to understand. Okay, so you have to look at, hey, what's my time that I have, my sophistication, and then look at the support you're going to get. So you have to look at those three, and then you have to look at the potential value that'll be driven, and some of that you got to figure out. And when you have that in place, you have to you can look at some of the main players and say, okay, which one matches my sophistication, and one that might be more sophisticated is that sophistication delivering more than a marginal benefit. So that's one thing you have to look at. The other thing you have to look at is the data integrations, right? So, website visits, if that's your main, what you're trying to monetize, you don't really need like a Clay, right? You don't need something that advanced. Like Warmly is amazing. If you get a lot of website traffic, Warmly will make your day. You can get Vector to do individual anonymization, and I think they integrate. Like just go that way. If you're looking for, more bespoke data, make sure those integrations line up there. And then ZoomInfo still has very good data, but like at Origami Agents, like they'll find that bespoke data for you. Now, this could take up all your time, and the benefits could be, if you're CRO, this could take up all your time, and then the benefits, they're tiny. If you're a marketer, like this can, this is take up, you'll be behind on your technical marketing or whatever marketing.
Yeah.
You have to understand that. The good news is that there's two things, right? Like most of them are month to month. You can start slow. And then additionally, there's agencies out there that can really help. There's so many. The Kiln comes to mind. Kellen, I have another, I forget his name, but there's so many agencies that you could kind of bring in. And then there's tools that make it easier, like User Gems makes it easy. Warmly is incredible. BitScale provides a lot of support. I'm meeting them tomorrow to do some, get some triggers out there. But yeah, you really have to look at your sophistication is the time and effort is the benefit more than marginal. Because once again, that novelty will suck you in. The novelty. Oh, I can create 10 email domains and, we've been there. Yeah, right. It's like, I create, I'm using AI, have an AI waterfall to get the perfect email out. And then, next thing you know, you got no responses and you're ticking people off. I will say, for marketers, all of this is so much easier, Joe, right? Like if you just have good brand, people know your brand, you have good content where your buyers live. I don't care where they live. They could live on, the journal. What is it called? Yeah. They could live there if the content's good. Go for it.
I think it's interesting you just said that, because I think that's a lot of the way that we're trying to think about. I think a lot about, particularly with our outbound campaigns that we're starting to trial, they're all obviously grounded in some form of intent. But I think a lot of how I'm thinking about it is like, we just need to, we're taking quite like a media-led approach with our content, right? Creating a few different shows, which is quite unique, I think, for an agency. Like we're not trying to just put up of LinkedIn posts and, call it a day. So we're doing a series of podcasts, like trying to take a real media approach, but with the thinking that it will allow us to generate a lot of intent data and a lot of,
It's so Gao Aga, the CEO and co-founder of Align, like he drives 60% plus of their pipeline. And
nuts.
Those are his posts. They're authentic, but like he doesn't, he gets help with those, right? And, that's their best performing content there.
Yeah.
And his posts are great. Like I bookmark his post. I tell him every time, if I disagree, I rarely disagree. And what if I do? I'm like, Chris Orlob at P Club. They're selling the sale, so it's a different persona, but I know my friends like in marketing and performance marketing and, like Silvio is a friend over at they do lessons for he posts, every day. He times it. I believe he's in Europe now, and
he's in Lisbon. He's where I am.
Oh no way! Yeah, he's a great friend, man. Him and I grew up. So how small world tech is. So we'll get a little personal. So growing up, I grew up in Miami. My dad was a programmer. There were no Hispanics in his office.
Okay.
There was people from India, Asia, all over the U.S., Europe. There's Europeans, not just British, but and now there's Hispanics in tech. He and I, where I grew up, where I was little, maybe like a mile from each other. So amazing. I'm sure you've seen it explode too, like in terms of opportunity and people. It's cool.
Oh yeah, completely. It's Do you know Gaetano? And are you
Gaetano? Yeah,
Miami side. Yeah.
So we're kind of like we're more acquaintances. So he's awesome. He's brilliant. He just had a baby. If anyone sees this, maybe just didn't have it. But if anyone sees this, tell him congratulations. We're gonna try to grab dinner, but it's difficult. But he's he used to be on Thursday night sales during the pandemic, which was like the greatest thing.
That's how I found out about Gaetano.
Yeah, and I was like, this guy's he's a character, but he was very sweet. And then he got into his business, and that's when I was like, man, he's not just very sweet, like he's brilliant. And now he lives in Miami. Yeah.
I know he's that side. Yeah. Awesome.
When you come to Miami, Joe, I'll meet you down there. I'm actually going in 2 weeks. My uncle's turning 70. They're having a big party. So
amazing. Just some I guess what would be great is wrap up lessons for the audience listening. I'm imagining there's our typical audiences, growth marketing leader, usually quite early stage.
Yeah.
What would be your kind of closing thought and closing lesson, for someone that's probably feeling a bit like me, quite intimidated by all of these tools, but realizes that, intent is the key now, you know, to scaling campaigns. Like what would be your kind of like piece of advice for someone starting that journey?
You know, usually I have something complex.
Complex is simple is better. Simple is better.
But this is how you start. It's real easy. Because there's so much on LinkedIn and it's great content, but it'll make you feel like you're doing something wrong, or, you know, you know what I mean? You just get bombarded. Like, where do I start?
Yeah.
That's what you do. You get a $20 ChatGPT subscription. You get a start a free trial on a data provider. Start processing the signals that you have, you know, whether you're, you know, just adding outbound or, you know, something along those lines. You know, make sure it's all compliant, and then, you know, get confident doing that. Get confident, you know, go into Perplexity, cut and pasting, you know, building folders, doing the prompts right, which most people are. And then you can start saying, hey, I want to add a tool like, you know, just a PLG tool, right? Like Log Growth Machine is a great way to start. You know, you can find out what works. What else? You know, BitScale, they provide great support. You know, they're a great team there. You know, start small, and you'll become tenured very quickly there. You know, you'll learn what doesn't work, and you'll learn to set expectations. And that's another big thing, like setting that expectations, like really, you know, will set you up for success. And then you can start to scale. So the team at Attention, I love Attention. He's like incredible CEO. Like they do so much very well through agents. I think he just posted like, you know, we have tons of agents. But even he said, when we hire new SDR, we don't want them doing anything automated, right? I'm sure they allow people to go to ChatGPT and edit messages, but we don't want them doing anything automated. It's because you have to learn those fundamentals. It's the same with this. Just go to ChatGPT, build some lists, get a POV going, right? You know, get all that going. And from there, you can start to add these tools. Log Growth Machine is a great tool to add. They have pre-built templates. The other thing, less is more. So frequency, you know, they have frequency caps, you know, all that stuff, so they can guide you. But less is more. You know, don't think, hey, I have 40 email domains, I'm going to email the world, or, you know, I'm going to send, you know, 1,000 LinkedIn requests, because you'll just run out of ICP and maybe get banned or blocked from the platforms. It's not good to get, like, LinkedIn is clamping down. They're cracking down on stuff. So you don't want to get, less is more. And then, you know, if you kill your domain health, like that takes a lot of work to fix. You don't want to do that at all.
That's great closing thoughts. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things I picked up even in this that I think we will go and take on board and implement into our own intent program. So it's really helpful.
Just remember, if we're able to use AI, you know, Microsoft owns LinkedIn. They're able to use AI there. You know, Google's able to use AI on emails. You know, Microsoft owns Outlook. So, you know, it's a cat and mouse game, right? You know, But
that's a great point. And I'm noticing actually now, LinkedIn there's like, I've noticed in the last 6 months, there's so many little restrictions.
Yes.
Like the number of connections per week, it seems like they're really like clamping down on almost everything.
It's their data, right? You know, they want you to run ads or use Sales Navigator. I mean, I get it, man. I would do the same. You know, it's like, you know, they're all fighting with like usability and utility versus monetization. And we're seeing Google really lean into monetization. You know, in the last few years. It's not the Google of like when we were kids, you know.
100%.
And, you know, Microsoft, they've always been about monetization. So
I think it's wanted to see that.
I mean, they own Outlook, they own Bing for whatever it's worth. They own Twitch, right? Do they own Twitch? Or is that Amazon?
No, Amazon. They
own GitHub. I think, you know, maybe they'll own TikTok in a couple months. So start small. Don't be cringe.
Great advice. Dude, thank you so much for coming on.
Awesome, man.
That's
My pleasure.
It's been great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.